Okay, on to the more pressing and serious transphobia, because we're in the transphobic attacks segment of my show today, and today was a heavy day for transphobia in the United States, specifically because of this. Aaron in the Morn, excellent Twitter account. Fully endorse it. Go follow Aaron in the Morn if you want updates on the attacks on trans people in the U.S. Um, but pointed out earlier today that the Missouri Attorney General has essentially banned gender affirming care for most trans adults via an emergency rule. It eliminates gender affirming care for trans youth, and it basically puts up so many barriers to care for transgender people in the state of Missouri that it effectively bars many, if not almost all, trans people in the state from actually transitioning. So, for those of you who want to know what the requirements are now, the requirements are you need 3 years of diagnosed gender dysphoria. You need 18 months of therapy. And you also need to go through with a mandatory screening for autism and depression. And if you are found to be autistic or depressed, you are blocked from gender affirming care in the state of Missouri. Yep. I don't know how to tell you guys, but like this is genocidal. If I lived in the state of Missouri, chat, I would not be able to I would not be able to get the medical care I need to live. There like I'm autistic. I have been diagnosed with depression for years. I would not be able to get my hormones in Missouri. I would not be able to pursue any surgical interventions in Missouri. If I were in Missouri, I'd be dead. I mean, that is also a pretty good. There's a pretty good chance for me too in that regard. Um, Also, Mint Kuro pointed this out in the language of the bill. That in Section F of this bill, uh, it would bar treatment if someone hasn't received a comprehensive autism screening. Now, I know I said that you wouldn't be able to get it if if you had autism, but what also isn't stated in this bill is the fact that autism screenings are almost always not covered for adults. Meaning that if you are an adult seeking to transition, you have to pay out of pocket to get screened for autism. And if you come up as autistic, well, you're shit out of luck. You just spent money, and you can't get HRT in Missouri anymore. It costs stupid amounts of money. Yeah, how much? How can you give us like a ballpark of like how much that cost? Because I have no idea. She went off about how trans children being diagnosed with autism and depression were thus being taken advantage of by shady companies who want to mutilate their genitals. Yeah, as if trans people are a large enough minority to need to fleece for money, or a large enough or wealthy enough minority to fleece for money. We're literally the poorest motherfuckers, demographically speaking. So ableism is in this too? Oh yeah, no, of course, yeah. It was at a couple thousand easy. KBS, I was told $5,000 15 years ago. If it was $5,000 15 years ago, I have to imagine it's a lot now. Yeah. What started this was that absolute bitch Barry Weiss and the fake story at the Washington U Clinic. Yeah, in this bill, they reference reporting from the New York Times in order to bar trans people. The New York Times and its transphobic editorial board directly contributed to stripping trans people of their ability to exist in another fucking state. Because it's been happening in state after state so far. Whether it's anti-drag bills that are worded so vaguely that it includes all trans people. This is an unprecedented attack. Like, I can't go to Florida. I can't go to Missouri now. I can't go to Mississippi, I think was, or Tennessee. And I believe there are several others, but those three for sure I know have passed legislation that effectively bar my ability to exist in those states. Additionally here, yeah, it directly covers, it directly references an article from the New York Times called "The Battle Over Gender Therapy," published in the New York Times Magazine, June 15th, 2022, updated March 17th, 2023. This entire thing is just shit that has been legitimized by ostensibly left media. Okay? It's disgusting. And on top of that, when we look at the justifications for this, you guys are going to lose your shit, because I know I did. Okay? I know I lost my shit. Because wouldn't you know it, chat? Andrew Bailey, the Missouri Attorney General, posted infographics to justify his reasoning here. So, references a 4,400% increase in girls referred for gender transition treatment in the UK in 10 years. 50% of pediatric gender clinics that do not require any psychological assessment before starting life-altering puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. Detransitioners who say they received no adequate evaluation before being put on life-altering drugs. 55%. Clinical trials for FDA approval. 0 clinical trials for FDA approvals showing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for gender dysphoria to be safe. Progressive countries that have restricted gender transition interventions for minors. Finland, Sweden, England. Okay, so a few things here. Few things here. Absolutely not a 4,400% increase in girls referred for gender transition treatment over the past 10 years. Unless the UK went from 1 to 440, which I don't know, that maybe that's feasible. I don't know what the demographics are, but I have a feeling that they might not be super great at citing their sources here. But we'll continue on here. 50% of pediatric gender clinics do not require any psychological assessment before starting life-altering puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones. This is just a lie. This is just a lie. Every pediatric gender clinic is required to get psychological assessments before starting medical interventions. And especially before cross-sex hormones. The only way you can skip that process is if you have informed consent, and informed consent is only available to adults. That is a fact right there. Detransitioners who say they received no adequate evaluation before being put on life-altering drugs, 55%. Any detransitioner who I frankly, one, I find it very, very hard to believe that detransitioners were never told that hormones would affect their bodies. I find it very, very, very difficult also to believe that detransitioners received no evaluation. Now, I find, prior to being put on any medical intervention, I do find it believable that perhaps some of them, or most of them, if not all of them, received evaluations that they have since deemed to be inadequate because it didn't work out for them. But that's every type of medical intervention. There are people who are advised to get open heart surgery who regret that decision later. And the rate of regret for that is exponentially higher than the rate of regret that detransitioners occur at. 0 clinical trials for FDA approvals showing puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones for gender dysphoria to be safe. That's because puberty blockers have been used for the past 50 years with no ill effects on cisgender children. Trans kids are not like physiologically different from cisgender children. They are comparable data sets when it comes to how puberty blockers affect them. So therefore, we have real-world data from half a century. Additionally, cross-sex hormones for gender dysphoria. We have studies on them. And the FDA, I'm fairly sure, approves off-label usage for the treatment of gender dysphoria. It's true. Sorry. Let me just say, cross-sex hormones for gender dysphoria. Actually, we do have approved hormones for same-sex gender dysphoria. You know, when cisgender women feel upset because of how menopause makes them feel, guess what? We have 17 FDA-approved estrogen medications to affirm their gender. We have Viagra. We have testosterone injections approved for the gender affirmation of cisgender men. And we know, because these drugs have been used in trans people for 80 fucking years, that it is a safe and effective way to address gender dysphoria. Hey, Civic Spectator. Just came back from my drag performance, saw you live. Thank you for talking about this. Greetings from Canada. Well, I hope your drag performance in Canada went really, really well, Civic Spectator. So, of course, it's an effort to protect children. Or at least so they say. Weirdly enough, they say it's an effort to protect children, and yet it heavily restricts adult care. Strange. Strange that. Children. We've uncovered a clandestine network of clinics across the state who are harming children by ignoring the science. Motherfucker, you're the one ignoring the science. You're the one going out of your way to ignore the advocacy and ignore the scientific discovery and peer-reviewed research of every single reputable medical organization in the United States. Every single reputable organization in medicine supports gender-affirming care, supports puberty blockers, supports HRT. Damn, this is crazy. Yeah, we need to follow the science. We need to follow all of the science. It sure would be a shame if there were literally hundreds upon hundreds of studies. 451 studies going back to the 90s on the efficacy and effects of hormone replacement therapy in trans people. Boy, that sure would be fucking inconvenient for the Attorney General of Missouri. They literally just follow the one debunked study about rapid onset gender dysphoria. They had one study, and all of the data in it is sourced from people who fucking hate trans people, complaining about their own trans kids. There was a new, they actually have two studies. A new one, more recent study, that also only has data sourced from trans people, or not trans people, from parents of trans people who frequent transphobic websites. Gee, I don't know, guys. It's really hard to figure out what's accurate. I just don't know about the science of black people anymore. You know, on the one hand, every reputable medical journal says that black people and white people are fundamentally the same on the inside. But, you know, when I read the research presented from people who only pull participants from their Sturmer, or Stormfront, well, I just don't know anymore, okay? They're making some pretty compelling points for ethnostates. Maybe we should make that public policy. The conservative movement is doing the equivalent here of what I just said. They are doing the equivalent of pulling all of their information from, like, fucking white supremacists in order to shape public policy on black people. That's the equivalent of what they're doing. Except, to them, it's more socially acceptable because they're doing it to trans people instead. Yeah, maybe when Ron DeSantis gets to replacing diversity, equity, and inclusion programs in Florida, he'll just poll he'll poll the denizens of 4chan on poll. Like, he'll just do some polling, P-O-L-I-N-G. Yeah, it's so fucking weird. So fucking weird. Yeah, we're ignoring the science. Fuck this ghoul. And I do mean, by the way, if I am mean towards people on Twitter, I know I can be mean towards people on Twitter. But I'm mean to people on Twitter who are essentially going to be remembered in the dustbin of history next to the cowardly white liberal that Martin Luther King Jr. wrote about. You know, the white liberals who despised him upon his assassination. Transphobes are going to be remembered alongside the old white decrepit husks of human beings who still manage to cling on to life to this day, who talk about and bemoan and cry and bitch about the fact that they can't say the N-word anymore about black people. Because things are too woke and PC these days. Fuck these ghouls. I hope and pray that one day they realize exactly what they have contributed to, exactly the pain that they've caused. And I'll even throw in after that, I hope that after that realization they change and they do something good for the world, for the people that they've hurt. But I'm not going to hold my breath. I just hope that at some point they realize when they die alone on their deathbed because their children and their grandchildren don't want to come see them because they're fucking bigots, that they realize that they brought this on themselves. And just because I see people mentioning, this. No, not this one. Here it is. Just because I see people saying Magneto was right.
And it's like I'm watching an X-Men movie with people that, when you watch the X-Men movies for Marvel Comics, it's like we have mutants living among us on planet Earth. And, you know, some people don't like that, but that's a fact. We have people that live among us today on planet Earth that are happy to display themselves as if they were mutants from another planet. This is the planet Earth, where God created men, male, and women, female.
By the way, just as an FYI, because this man is so fucking oblivious, these arguments, almost verbatim, would have been used against people that look like him within living memory. Probably within his living memory. You know? They, like, this guy would have been on the receiving end of this argument from white people in America in the 1950s. They would have argued that he was the mutant, that he was the minority, and that he was the abomination. That was, by the way, one of the justifications for slavery. Slavery was justified by white slave owners as the natural order enforced by God himself. I don't know how many of you people know that, but slave owners argued that black people were descendants of Cain, the original murderer, rejected by God. That black people were deviant and freakish, and their black skin was the mark of Cain, and that is why they needed to be subservient to white people. This guy doesn't know it because he's a stupid motherfucker. But he is making the same argument that people who would have owned him 150 years ago, would have made in favor of owning people like him. And now he turns it against another minority because he thinks God has marked them as descendants of Cain, as deviant.
I'm a proud Christian conservative Republican. I'm not on the fence. not on the fence. There is so much darkness in our world today, so much evil in our world today, and so many people who are afraid to address the evil, the dysphoria, the dysfunction. I'm not afraid to address the dysphoria or the dysfunction. The Lord rebuke you, Satan, and all of your demons and all of your imps who come and parade before us. That's right, I called you demons and imps who come and parade before us and pretend that you are part of this world. So I'm saying my righteous indignation is stirred. I am sick and tired of this. I'm not going to put up with it. You can test me and try to take me on, but I promise you I'll win every time. Let's all vote up on this bill. Thank you.
This man's only notable accomplishments in his entire life, by the way, the only notable things this man has ever accomplished was being born in England and getting an associate degree from Birmingham Metropolitan College before moving to the United States Virgin Islands to work in the hospitality industry and become a businessman. And then he moved to Florida in 1991. And became a pastor and gave opening prayers for Donald Trump. Those are his claims to fame. Those are the things he has accomplished. And the only other thing notable about him is that he decided to get up in front of everyone in Florida and show his entire ass by claiming transgender people are inferior and demonic and impish and deserve the retribution of the Lord. Utterly and completely ignorant that people would have been discriminating against him within living memory with these exact words. Representative Barnaby is a failure and a disgrace. Before I move on, Real Radhom and Objectively a Cat, thank you both for the raids. Welcome, raiders. I appreciate the raids. Hello. We are covering the rampant transphobia at work in the United States at the moment. But yeah, come on in, hit the follow button. And folks, I have been streaming for about 4.5 hours now, and if you would like to support me, hit that follow button and consider coming on over to riverboat.gg. It's our site where we have the chat and other companies like Twitch and YouTube do not take cuts of the revenue. Also, no ads over on riverboat.gg. So if you would like to enjoy an ad-free experience, feel free to come on over. Hello, folks. Fox of Fate. Hello. Forlorn79. Hello. How are we doing? Real Radhom, hope you had a good stream. And folks, yeah, we're deep into a segment on transphobia. So it is a bit harsh tonight. Hey, Lord LeBrand. No. Lay down. Yeah, there you go. If you start breathing into my face, though, I'll have to send you away. Okay? Yeah. Loki Mantis, thank you for the 100 biddies. Brad was covering the Trump interview with Tucker Carlson. I was planning to do that today. We might get to that tomorrow. Objectively a Cat, thanks for making the leap over to riverboat.gg. Okay, you need to go lay down. I'm sorry. Yeah, that was literally, they're crazy. Maybe, but they got guts. You've been making some pretty extreme... Wait, oh, sorry, that's... You've been making some pretty extreme charges against us. Oh, no. Okay. Wait. Good evening, Reverend. You've been making some pretty extreme charges against us. But you're supposed to be... dead? We're full of surprises, Stryker, as you'll soon see. Your toys are broken, Reverend. Your goons are beaten. It's just your word against ours. Then I have nothing to fear. You're a lucky man. Thanks to you and people like you, mutants live in fear every day of our lives, and sometimes those lives are very short. Less than a week ago, 2 children in Connecticut were murdered, Stryker, condemned solely for an accident of birth. Would you do that to someone because of the color of their skin or their beliefs? I do nothing, Cyclops. I'm an instrument of the Lord. And whatever a man's color or beliefs, he is still human. Those children and you X-Men are not. Says who? You? What makes your link with heaven any stronger than mine? We have unique gifts, but no more so and no more special than those granted a physician, or a physicist, or a philosopher, or an athlete. It could be due to an accident of nature or divine providence. Who's to say? Are arbitrary labels more important than the way we live our lives? What we're supposed to be more important than what we actually are? For all you know, we could be the real human race, and the rest of you, mutants. Human? You dare call that thing human? No, it's literally that. It's literally that. Chronos Stampede, thank you very much for the follow. I appreciate it. God. Yeah, these people are just horrible. They're just horrible. Here's a former SNL cast member who has fallen so far off into the deep end that she's just 60 feet under the waves at this point. Who recently testified against trans people.
Victoria Jackson. God hates sodomy. He hates homosexuality. He said it's an abomination. And God hates sexual immorality, all kinds, fornication, adultery, etc. And God hates pride. Like, one of the most things he hates is pride. Proverbs 11:12. When pride comes, then comes disgrace, but with humility comes wisdom. The Lord detests all the proud of heart. Be sure of this, they will not go unpunished. Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction.
You know, I suppose this fits because her main bit on SNL was basically just playing a bimbo archetype, and frankly, maybe reality was just a little bit too close to the performance, huh?
A haughty spirit before a fall. And Sodom and Gomorrah proves that God hates sodomy and sexual immorality and pride. And it's still there. And archaeologists have uncovered it. You can go on YouTube and see. It's a frozen city in sulfur and fire and brimstone. Brimstone is sulfur. I just want to encourage this generation not to be brainwashed and to watch Beckett Cook on YouTube. Beckett Cook.
Fucking crazy town over here. Fucking crazy town. Her brain is fucking cooked, bro. I thought it maybe showing some of her SNL bits would help, but like frankly, I just kind of speed ran through a couple on mute, and they aren't good bits. She was not a talented cast member on SNL. Let's put it that way. All right. Anyway, this is important, related to the complete blocking of trans healthcare in Missouri for both youth and adults. Just to be extremely important, if you live in Missouri, okay? Important to note that you have the ability to start HRT under the informed consent standard until April 27th. So you have 13 days. You have 13 days if you are a trans person and an adult who needs to get on this. You have 13 days to get on HRT. If you are able to get on HRT within that time, the Attorney General will you will be grandfathered in. You will not have to meet the requirements. Okay? So if you are in Missouri, this is your chance. This is your shot. Because if you don't do it now, the requirements will take effect. And those requirements are, if you are an adult in the state of Missouri, that you need a record of gender dysphoria going back at least 3 years. You need 18 months of assessment by a therapist. And you also cannot be autistic or depressed. If you have autism or depression, you are barred from transitioning in the state of Missouri. So you have 13 days before those horrific policies take effect. I'm sure every legal organization in the country that gives a shit will be taking legal action against this, but they're not going to stop. This is the thing, right? They're not going to stop. Even if they are stayed in court, they are going to pursue other avenues to get these in place by other means, and it is going to be horrific. I guess fuck autistic people? Yes. Yes, that is explicitly the goal of this legislation. Fuck autistic people and fuck depressed people. And you know what? Weirdly enough, there's a correlation between people with autism who are depressed and being trans. That's probably why they have that requirement. Yeah, it's a twofer. They get to be ableist and transphobic. It's a real win in their book. Weird how they can understand the science when it helps them be more bigoted. You know? Real strange how whenever any of the science works in their favor to be more bigoted, they love science. The second it goes against their bigotry or doesn't enable their bigotry, holy shit do they hate science. Oh, I'm sure the ACLU is on this already. I'd be very surprised if they weren't.